that's what I love about what you and I do too, is we seek out mentorship. We seek out coaches to help us walk through of saying, hey, there's fine tuning here. And I want to voice this, and I've got your opinion on this, is every high achiever, every great people that you see that have ever accomplished great things. Let's list out a few. How about like great athletes, right? Yep. Olympians, any of these great people that have tried anything, how many of them got to the Olympics that we just recently saw that stood on stage with gold around their neck? How many of them achieved that on their own?
Nobody, not one person.
None of them.
No.
None of them.
Multiple coaches even.
Yes. And so that's the cool part about this, Chris, is that you don't have to have everything dialed in, and you shouldn't feel like you have to. Like, be open, be vulnerable, like step out, start asking questions. Welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. I got Chris Weitzel on the call today. Just super pumped to dive in just a minute, Chris. But before you do, if you have not gone down below, I put a whole link down of like a whole training of like how to grow online. It's going to really help you build your branding and build your business. So go check that out. Chris, super stoked to have you right off the bat here, jumping into the podcast. Like, tell us, what does high performance mean to you? Like, how does that live out day to day in your life?
High performance now for me probably started in the last 4 years, where I train to be a business athlete. I look at what I do now, and every day I need balance and structure. And so I literally train from, I'd say, pretty much the time I get up until the time I put my daughter to bed. And I train to be the person my identity, my future identity that I've already looked at. And I just kind of reverse engineered it. And I keep doing the things that I think that person needs to do when it comes to my physical health, emotional health, mental health. And that's what high performance mean to me, is constantly training to be the person I know I'm going to be. That's
amazing, man. That's good. I appreciate the value that you're giving there. Right off the bat, though, I want to give people some context and add some in if I'm off track. But Chris, you're a podcast host. You're a business coach that helping people with addictions or mindset and high performance. That's what you do. And then you also have a commercial business like Hustling Seafood. And you've done that for almost a decade now. What else am I missing here? What can people know about you that I haven't listed out here, so people can get some context around the success that you have and what you've been able to build?
Well, thanks, Nathan. I've never had it described kind of like that, but thank you. Just to give you context back on the history and how it kind of all started was I was early on, didn't know what to do in actually high school. In the guidance office, seen a brochure, said financial advisor. I thought that sounded cool. A bunch of my friends were going to that college, so I did that. I ended up doing that for 12 years and ended up selling off a small little business that I had built up, a small block of business. And then for 5 years, I literally, from outwitting the devil, I drifted. I drifted for 5 years, working straight afternoons at a job I absolutely despised. And I was making feed in a feed mill where my father and my mother and my sister actually worked. And I ended up getting fired. So I am one of those people, Nathan, that I can honestly say getting fired from my last up in Canada here, T4 income job was one of the best things that absolutely happened to me. And I was in a new relationship with my now wife, and she's going, well, what are you going to do, Chris? And I'm like, I don't know, Holly. And she goes, well, why don't you do what you really like? She goes, she's a teacher. And so up in Canada here, they make some pretty good bank. And it gave me a few months to really, at the time, I was growing vegetables. And a friend of mine that I worked with, he said, why don't you do a fruit and vegetable stand that he was doing as a side hustle? And so we went out and picked a spot on a busy highway, and hence I started growing and buying and selling fruits and vegetables on a busy highway. Huh. And I did that for...
I'm just picturing you with overalls with a woven, hat with, some wheat sticking out of your mouth, like just as a country bumpkin, and selling and hustling some stuff, almost like an Amish would, but it's a little different, I can imagine.
It was a little different, but you're not far off the beaten path there in that I was selling on it was a busy highway from a lot of people coming from Toronto to the Stratford Festival, which is a very worldwide known for Shakespearean plays and everything. So you have these people from big city going to a small town right by my fruit and vegetable stand, and I had very high quality produce, grew high quality produce, and sold to these people going from Toronto to the festival back and forth. So a lot of my regulars were people used to big city prices, and here I played up the I love the term country bumpkin, and we did that, and we then we got into supplying restaurants like high end chefs, and that. This is going to lead down getting fired from a job, starting a roadside fruit and vegetable stand. And because I was battling addiction and still do to this day, it was very easy to conform a job around your habit. And so my drug of choice was alcohol. And for the end of the last 5 years, I was in the parking lot beside an LCBO store. That's just a big liquor store. And in the other parking side of the parking lot was a craft brewery that, made beer in the parking lot that I rented to put up my big tent. And so at the end of the 1 year, I realized that was, I just couldn't go on anymore. Didn't want to, terrible thoughts. And so it was at the end of that season, I checked myself into a 42-day rehab program. And that's kind of where went in there, 42 days, wife left me, took the kid. She came back when I came out of rehab. And then it was the 4 years since then that we started a brick and mortar fish and seafood business. And that's when I focused and things really took off. So a lot of what you describe me as is in about a 4-year window.
Wild, man. And there's so many people that not only have gone through that, but at least publicly talk about it enough to want to help people with it, which I love. Because I think people, when they think of their past, they're like, that's just the past. I just want to move forward without anybody knowing or hearing about it. The fact that you're doing this is really vulnerable in a way, but it's really helpful. Talk about some of these things that you're teaching your clients that you have, because being aware of it is one aspect of it, right? Because even in AA, right, it isn't the first thing of like you're admitting that you're an alcoholic in a way. Like that's the first step, right? Yep. And so it's like what goes in the mind of someone that has an addiction, and you're helping them through that, and really helping them get on the other side of that clarity that you've had.
Well, you nailed it. Any addict has to want to quit. You can't quit for anybody else. You can't quit for a family member. It could be somebody that says, I'll come back if it's just not going to be sustainable if you don't want to quit in the first place. And so that's what I ended up talking to people, like when I do work the program, and somebody that doesn't, because I'm very vocal about my past, that has attracted people who are not happy and can identify with where I was, because that's where they are right now. Mm-hmm. And so when I talk to people like that, it's a lot of people are just, I have a brick and mortar store where people will come in and go, Chris, can we go talk? And I know it's happened so many times now. Mm-hmm. And it's now, I've helped dozens of people now get into a program. And that's where the extension of me wanting to coach now, because I'm a business owner who, to me, I've seen the shitty days. I've lived the shitty days. And now I can identify with a business owner who might be feeling very overwhelmed. And the first thing you think of, well, I'm just going to reach for the bottle. And it could be anything. I mean, addiction goes all the way into reach for that bag of Oreos. It could be reaching for the remote. It could be, there's so many different ways that addiction plays out. I think nowadays we just hear about the drugs, the alcohol. Those are just the more commonplace ones. So just being able to relate to somebody, and in particular business owners that are going through it, trying to let them know, like, there's a way out.
Yeah. There's many entrepreneurs and business owners that listen to this. Like if you were going to give advice for someone, because more often than not, high achievers have some vices, They have some struggles. They're no saints by any means. but they're dealing with a lot. They
Yeah.
carry the shoulder of so much stresses and worries and past that get them into a mindset that is destructive in
Mm-hmm.
a way for someone to find that out. Like, what has been some catalyst for you that's helped you, for other listeners here that could maybe give some examples of whatever those vices that they have? Like we've listed, you can list off a bunch of different stuff,
Yeah.
but like, what are some things that can replace those bad habits? Because I think it's not just taking away or adding to, more often than not, it's replacing. You're, instead of chips, do popcorn,
Yeah.
instead of doing pornography, go work out. Like what are some shifts that you've been able to coach some people and that you've seen and that you apply to your life?
That's a great question, Nathan. The To go back just a couple seconds was what do I tell people? The first thing I tell people, you're not alone.
Mm.
Like, please don't feel, and I tell people, this may sound harsh, but I tell people, you're not special. You're not special. There's other people who have been in the same boat you are and are going through the exact same feelings and emotions you are. But you just have to know you're not alone. And I'm
Mm.
here. And I have friends that if you don't want to talk to me, I have other friends who have gone through the same thing. So that's the first thing I really like to hammer home, is that you're never alone. We both know God is always with us.
Mm-hmm.
And so never be alone. How I replaced, the addictive personality, it doesn't go away. This is what a lot of people, you're never cured of your addiction. It's a day-to-day battle. And today I just chose not to have a drink or smoke some weed, because weed was the two just went hand in hand for me. And everybody has their own vices. But for me, it was working out. I've been working out, since that was the beautiful thing when you're in rehab. It was my wife, it was a 42-day reprieve from life. And anybody that looks at anybody, if anybody is going to judge and look down on somebody for taking it into their own hands to get better and go to rehab, it is the best time. I met some crazy, crazy people, and it was a time where you got to just think about, it's a selfish thing. All you're doing is thinking about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But I was able to work out, Nathan. I worked out in my room alone, just doing push-ups, sit-ups. We were allowed, this was actually just during COVID when it was just starting to come out. We had to schedule a time where only a handful of people were able to go to the gym, and you had to distance everybody.
Mm.
So the one thing I replaced it with was working out and walking. Working out and walking were the two things that but you can't do that all the time. So the other thing, that I read a book. If I'm feeling antsy, I get my brain off into a different track by simply picking up a book. Those are three things that I would highly recommend to anybody.
How do you, in rehab, there's a lot of conversations. They're asking you probing questions.
Yeah.
They're asking you to open up. And sometimes we have spouses that are available to ask those questions of us so that we can be open. But more often than not, we're so obsessed in the day-to-day work. And so it's hard for us to be in our mind, so much. Like, how have you built either a system for yourself or your clients too, with helping people really kind of voice, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And them having a space to actually open up and say, hey, this is where I'm at. These are the wins. These are the losses, or, hey, I backtracked. I need to get back on. Like, how do you reframe, helping people with some of those things?
The reframe comes in the fact that when you are in active addiction, you're not in touch with any emotions, Nathan. This is in my opinion. This is also the reasons when you're in rehab, when you're opening up about things to other people, that's pretty new. Yeah. That's really new for a lot of people to actually, crazy here, deal with your thoughts and emotions without that reaching for whatever. So you have to learn. You actually have to. I'm learning every single day. Just my wife says to me, like, you never would have done this 5 years ago. You never would have said that 5 years ago. And now it's a constant. It comes back to that original question of how do you become high performance, and what it means to you is you are constantly retraining your brain on the things that you were not doing. And that is a day-to-day intentional process for me. And what I'm trying to not tell people, but I'm trying to just tell them what's worked for me is you have to treat your brain in a training process every single day. Like this is asking my wife, like, how are you feeling today? That's as simple as that question that you probably ask your wife every single day and haven't thought about it. For me, I had to train my brain every morning to write down, ask Holly how she slept last night. Ask Holly what she plans on doing today. It's not about us anymore. It's about providing service to the people around us.
Yes. So good. Like I know for me, I'm in my head. I'm an obsessive person. So all day long, and I think many entrepreneurs can, relate to this. You're just obsessed with what you're doing that day. It's hard to compartmentalize. If there's a phone call or text that come in, it like just messes up our flow. Right. And then, we get home, we're trying to prioritize our family life, fitness, faith, like trying to prioritize some of this stuff. What's been a big help for me, and I want to get your concept and of ideas behind this, but I just, not a psychologist, but like a coach, almost like a life coach in a way that can help you with asking those probing questions. And maybe that's what you do in your coaching program, is just saying one-on-ones, is just like, hey, how are you doing? Let's talk about your wins. Let's talk about where you're going. And we're kind of come up with a strategy for you to like work on that this week so that you have a game plan for success. For me, that's been helpful for me to be a lot more open, because there's things that you would share with your wife and not your kid. Right. And like, you see how the difference is. And sometimes like my wife doesn't need to know all the conversations I've had with all my team. Like it would put a big pressure of weight on our shoulders of dealing with those sort of things. And so I think with finding someone like yourself or a psychologist or someone with some points in your life, let me list out a few things and tell me what areas of these things, if it's like you need to talk about your fitness, your faith, your relationships, like having that voice probably would be really, really helpful. Has that been something that you've applied in your practice? How would you help people to kind of not only see those challenges, but actually walk through getting that help from you?
The main thing is like you said, is the open lines of communication. A lot of people feel they don't have the right context or the right environment. They don't have the right environment to be able to communicate some of those things. Especially like when you said family, faith, relationships. And for me, it's just all about, we all want to be heard. We all want to have the feeling that we are heard. And I think just even being there, like when it comes down to talking to my wife about certain things, I'm not going to, bothers probably not the right word, but she probably doesn't care about a lot of the things that I may want to talk about. And that is why I've got the circle that I do. And this is like, for me, going to AA, my wife doesn't quite understand everything that I've put myself through and by battling addictions going through. But you go to a meeting and sit around and talk to those people. That's why we're all there, is to be able to talk like that. So when I'm sitting down with somebody in business struggling, I mean, the main thing is to just know that they're being heard and that you are there to listen, come up with some type of game plan and communicate that in a straightforward and meaningful way. Yeah. That's probably the biggest benefit that I can offer to people is I've been there. I have a pretty good feeling on where your head is, where it's at. Let me tell you what I have done, and let's see if it's going to work for you. And if not, I'm going to listen to you. We're going to iterate off of that.
And I want to voice this too, just because this is so helpful in a lot of ways, is if you're a person that doesn't know how to solve things, you're challenged with not knowing where to go, like in fitness, in your faith, in your family. If like you feel like things aren't working the way it should be, you need help. You can't figure this out on your own. And if you're in your head trying to solve it yourself, or you feel like there's a missing piece and you feel stuck, this is where it's like great people like Chris to reach out and saying, hey, I feel like I'm not hitting 100% that I could be as a father or a husband. And these are probably some things that maybe aren't necessarily addictions, but they're things in the way, or maybe they are just straight up addictions because you just don't know yet that they are.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like you're like, oh, I just have a casual drink 3 times a day, every day. Well, maybe, maybe just maybe, you might be, addicted, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I just thought it was normal. My dad always did this, that, and you have maybe an impression of what is normal when it's not because it's a coping advice.
Yeah.
Like for people that are at that point and they need that help or just a good reminder, um, give us some more strategies and ideas of like some things that you can help people through with all this.
Oh, I'm bursting here. Is that I don't even want to try and figure stuff out I mean, going back to what you're saying, I don't want to try and figure it out myself anymore, not knowing what is available, like knowing that, like, we're both in Dan Martell's elite coaching program. Now that I know there's a cheat code that I don't have to go through and make the mistakes, that I can actually just ask the questions now, condense that time period. That to me was mind blowing. And that's what I try and get across to people is you don't have to make the mistakes that I did. I can help you condense that time by you just verbalizing and telling me where your head is at right now. And we're going to see if it's a coaching fit or if you need a therapist. Some people, it's just a matter of saying no to certain things and getting out of a situation that may clear their head up 100% or 1,000%. But until we have the conversation and talk about where they want to be and what they're currently in, like, to be in a coaching program myself just changed my life, and the fact that I don't have to figure it all out anymore. Right. I can simply be vulnerable, say I don't know what I'm doing, and I can ask a question to hundreds of people in a group. And that to me has just been so, it's been relieving to know that. And then to get that across to people that they have that option as well, and they can use me as that option, or anybody really. I just want to see them get the help that they need, and from the person that needs, they can deliver it.
And we should clarify, it's not a weakness to ask for help, especially as business owners. So oftentimes we think, hey, I just have to know all the answers because that's what's coming at you every day with all the different questions. So you kind of build this persona of like, I got to have my crap together and I got to figure all these things and answer and put out these questions. And then you have, your wife says, hey, this is how my day goes. And you're trying to solve that. And you realize, oh gosh, I'm not listening. Right. Or, hey, I'm trying to deal with the kids stuff, but then, hey, am I being present? Or, hey, I got these different things. Like there's so many avenues of realizing, hey, I just got to be here. I got to be present. I got to understand, hey, I don't have it all together. That comes with humbleness, with realizing, hey, I got to figure this out. And that's what I love about what you and I do too, is we seek out mentorship. We seek out coaches to help us walk through of saying, hey, there's fine tuning here. And I want to voice this, and I'll get your opinion on this, is every high achiever, every great people that you see that have ever accomplished great things. Let's list out a few. How about like great athletes, right? Yep. Olympians, any of these great people that have tried anything, how many of them got to the Olympics that we just recently saw that stood on stage with gold around their neck? How many of them achieved that on their own?
Nobody, not one person.
None of them.
No.
None of them.
Multiple coaches even.
Yes. And so that's the cool part about this, Chris, is that you don't have to have everything dialed in, and you shouldn't feel like you have to. Like, be open, be vulnerable, like step out, start asking questions of like, who knows how to help solve X. And right now, like what you've doing right now with, building your business, with your relationship with your wife and your kids, and then, with, your coaching business, like there's so many cool things about what you're leaning into doing. And how you're helping people. I just really appreciate having this conversation. It's just a reminder for everybody that they're not alone. They can succeed. Where can people find you and follow you further, Chris?
I have my personal page, which is I use Instagram, but we're on Facebook. But Instagram is at Chris Weitzel, ChrisWeitzel.ca. And that's primarily where I spend most of my time. My business you can check out is Chris Seafood, ChrisSeafood.ca. And you can always DM me, and we do have, you can always DM me on Instagram.
I'll put the links down below so people can grab those and connect with you further. Chris, it's been a blast to talk with you and learn so much about how you're helping your students there. Before you jump, don't forget to check out that link down below for that free training that I want to give you. That's going to be real helpful for you to grow an online audience like me and Chris are always doing, and so many of my students as well. So check that out. That will be helpful. Until next time, we'll see you on the next podcast episode.